What is new in finance? We're going to be covering three topics. First of all, we're going to be covering invoice capture. Then we're going to be looking at BPA, which stands for Business Performance Analytics. And then we're going to take a look at some financial tags. Invoice capture. So as you can see, invoice capture is fairly new. It was generally available July 18th of this year. So it will be available as part of the recent releases. So 10.36, I believe it's also included in 10.35 as well, but certainly available in 10.36. Now, invoice capture is Microsoft's own solution for invoice scanning OCR software. So what it does is it will recognize an invoice, it will pull out that information from the invoice, and depending on your configuration, it will automate that process through to accounts payable. So what are some of the benefits of invoice capture with Microsoft solution? Well, it's going to eliminate your need for manual entry because it's going to be pulling out that invoice information rather than users that are currently keying in invoices manually. It's going to streamline your invoice process, so there'll be less involvement with people, and there are different ways that you can configure this, and I'll talk about that a little bit shortly. It's going to save some time. It's going to increase the accuracy as it learns the invoice formats, and it'll free up your resources to focus on some organizational objectives as well. So what are some of the key points with invoice capture? So it is available now and you can install it. It does require two components at least. You have to turn the feature on in feature management within D365. There is also an application that you can download from AppSource. So the screenshot here is of AppSource and the invoice capture solution that you will need to install. It does also require virtual entities. So as part of that install process, we recommend that you have the virtual entities configured. Now, I mentioned earlier that channels, there's certain different ways of configuring invoice capture. So channels are where we can configure the solution to pick up from either your SharePoint site, they can be stored in OneDrive, but more commonly is you would typically set up an inbox in Outlook where suppliers would send their invoices and the invoice capture solution will automatically pick up those invoices from the Outlook connection. Now you do need to also configure which legal entities you're going to be setting up this solution for. So if you have multiple companies in your D365 environment, you will need to configure which legal entities will use invoice capture and which ones won't. Now, configuration also is where you can define confidence scores. So confidence scores is an area where if a certain percentage of the invoice is captured successfully, do you want it to automatically post that through to Dynamics? Whereas if it doesn't capture all of the information on the confidence scores, you can have alerts to notify users to manually intervene and add additional configuration and mapping as the tool is learning the invoice layouts. Now, as part of the invoice generation as well, payments can be automatically matched and settled. So you can go one step further of not only just capturing the invoice, but you can also automate the generation and settlement of the payments as well, so that then the accounts payable team are really just focusing on the actual payments of any invoices that have been captured by the solution. I should also mention that there are some really useful links available. So on the Microsoft Learn, there is a large section of useful information with the invoice capture. If you're not familiar with the Yammer page, which is now called Viva Engage, there is also a really useful group, which is the invoice capture for Dynamics 365. And you can see that there are some really useful videos that break down some of the setup and provides a little bit more detail on the invoice capture solution. So the Yammer page, incredibly useful, lots of channels to follow, but certainly invoice capture is one that I strongly recommend following. Moving on to our next solution then. So we have BPA, or which is known as Business Performance Analytics. Microsoft have been working on this for some time. So its general availability is going to be February of next year. It was formerly called Project Commercina, for those that have been following this for some time. Basically, it's a reporting tool that Microsoft have been working on for some years now. And the goal of the solution is to not only bring financial information together, but also non-financial data across companies and across the modules within Dynamics. So it is a little bit of a gap currently in the Microsoft stack with D365, where you have tools like Management Reporter that were really strong for financial data, but there was a gap between bridging the financials and the subledgers. So Microsoft have been working on this for some time, and the goal of Microsoft is to make this solution easy to use for not only accountants, but end users to build their own reports, but also leverage some standard out-of-the-box reports that Microsoft build. Now, some key points with BPA. So the preview is available now. So if you are interested in exploring the functionality within the Business Performance Analytics, you can actually download this now in the preview. So it does require, similarly to Invoice Capture on the app source, you would need to download it from the app source, and you do need to have virtual entities configured. It is based on the Power BI platform. So if you do have experience with Power BI, the user interface is similar to Power BI. So it does have a very similar look and feel to the Power BI platform. Currently, Microsoft's focus is limited to financial information, but they have regular monthly updates on how they're progressing with BPA. And there was actually a session this morning about 1 a.m. for their update where they've discussed procurement to cash, order to cash and procure to pay. So they are expanding this to subledgers. So the roadmap is continually growing. And like I said, the general availability for the total solution is currently scheduled for February 2024. Now, the benefits, as I mentioned, is this provides a reporting tool across multi-legal entities and also multi-year reporting as well. Before I move on to financial tags, I will just point out again in the Yammer or Microsoft Viva page, there is a private group that you can join to be part of the BPA early adopter program, and they post regular content and encourage feedback on suggestions and improvements with the tool. So as I mentioned this morning, they had a session where they were giving updates on the order to cash and procure to pay. So this is a live group, and there's a lot of interest and feedback that's been actively worked on at Microsoft with the reporting tool. Moving on to financial tags. So financial tags have been around for a little while now. They've been available since April 28th. And financial tags, for those finance people on the call, are very similar to financial dimensions. So this is another mechanism where you can tag transactions with information, but they work in a slightly different way to financial dimensions and provide a little bit more flexibility and less validation, which I'll come to shortly. So financial tags, the key points to pick up are you can define up to 20 of these on transactions. They are currently limited to general journals. So the intention from Microsoft is to expand this to other subledger transactions, but for now, they're limited to general journals. Options, which I'll get to shortly, include text, custom lists, and lists from Dynamics as well. Now, one benefit of these financial tags is once transactions are posted, you can actually adjust these without having to post correction journals. You can simply edit the financial tags to other values once transactions have been posted. And these can be manually displayed and deactivated also from users without having to go into maintenance mode. So I'm going to quickly jump into a Dynamics environment and explore financial tags. So you can see I've got a number of financial tags here. I've got some custom lists. So if I explore the sports and look at the tag values, you can see I've got football, rugby, swimming, netball. I can add another tag for, say, water polo. Very similar to financial dimensions, where you can create values quite easily, and these would be available to tag transactions with. I also have a list defined from Dynamics, so I can pull this list from projects that have been created in the system. And I also have what's called a text. Now, what text gives from a functionality perspective is that it's a free text field that you can type at any time. So from a validation perspective, there's a lot more relaxed compared to financial dimensions. I'll get to that shortly. You can also activate and deactivate these at any point in time. So you can see here I've got flights currently not activated. I can activate these tags as an end user without having to go into maintenance mode and click OK. That is then scheduled and can become active for users. So some quick comparisons between financial dimensions. Tags are company specific. They don't have any validation against your account structures, so there's no rules in what users can type for the tags. They're currently limited to general journals, so no master files at this point in time, and you can edit these once you've posted your transactions.